This is one of these moments where I was playing the guitar, singing a song, enjoying myself, and then I lost it. I couldn't enjoy it anymore. I couldn't sing. There's no feeling anymore. And I think I finally came to the realization after many years of having these episodes where my cognition and my emotions were just shut down. I think I realized this is actually due to this kind of inner apprehension, this restlessness, which comes from association with joy and punishment, from like bullying, violence, judgments, verbal abuse. As a child, where whether you were dancing or laughing or just being innocent and playful, and many times got beaten the shit out of, or like in really early age, you know, when you're beaten the shit out of or fucking broken down and led to believe some really shit stuff about life or about yourself. And when you're at that kind of age where your brain is still forming, it's before 7, when you're like 3, 4, 5, and it's like there, it's always echoing in the back, and there's this tension that's always there. You don't know. You can never fully rest. Because you're wired to not be allowed to be yourself. I mean, it can also be when you're doing something stupid, like breaking something or being loud or whatever it is as a kid, messing around. But whatever it is, it could be innocent. It's innocent stuff that would have happened as a child. Whether I was breaking the rules or just being innocent and playful and just enjoying myself freely. Yeah. And you see, you make so many associations and they're all so deep and they're all connected. There's like a chain reaction. There's like a whole fucking network of them. So one can trigger the other. So even if you can somehow manage to recognize where your breakdown, your freeze, your fight, flight to freeze fucking out of nowhere situation with your brain comes from, where you lose your train of thought. I mean, there's other reasons for it as well, but you just lose your ability to join in with people, to connect. Even if you can recognize what one source is of this shit, and you know that there's like this restless, this awkward, this horrible tension that's always there. You can never fully enjoy anything. There's like 50% of that joy is being weighed down by something. When you can recognize in these moments this one source and try, and even like you don't even know how to sort out that one thing, it's triggered and connected to so many other things in a network of like traumatic experiences that just kind of break you down. And you have to really fucking take time out and map this shit out and just decipher it. And I don't mean sit and analyze it every day intellectually, but just sit with it. sit with it, process it, let it come through you, and fucking, you have to go through all the feelings, and you have to be able to love, not just love yourself, but love that part of yourself that was hurt so badly in these moments. You have to be able to relate to that. You have to go through the painful process, almost like it was happening now, but be there to catch yourself when you're falling, and to give yourselves the empathy. And that's so hard, because it's so hard to have those feelings when they've been beaten out of you, Imagine people, you see kids who are violent, people who are really, truly, utterly violent all day, every day. I mean, I can kind of get why they are like that. I'm not just being some fucking pompous lefty, victim sort of ideologist, whatever. Let's save everyone. Oh, let's forgive everyone for their sins, or whatever the fuck it is, and pay all our tax money on social welfare so people can just live off people who have jobs, or whatever. I know I'm going into a rant now, but my point is, I'm basing this on the experience of which took me many years to understand and question, and I've gone blank again. It's I know I could have personally done a lot better in life despite all these scars that I have in me, but I didn't do as well as I could have, there's still hope for me. I'm still sorting this shit out. But it surfaced, I could have blocked shit out and been very successful with something, and then had a midlife crisis and not known why. I've been discovering shit that, isn't, I don't know, it's not a bad thing to discover. It makes me understand other people better. And it makes a lot of sense to me. People aren't just assholes. I know that they make stupid choices and they can be lazy or whatever you want to call them. But when people behave in a way that you don't like, whether it's violent or just abusive, or they're just taking and not giving or whatever, it's usually because there's some fucking scar. People want to be able to be useful. They want to be valued. They want, they have this natural ability to give. But when that's fucking beaten out of you, whether it's just because you've been bored to death or slapped around as a kid or whatever, that's going to change the way you approach the world. It's just common sense to me that that people are like that. And when I like to see different sides of the argument when it comes to political stuff about, a lot of shit that's on the internet these days, victims, and, how we have to feel sorry for everyone, and there's all, criticism about left-wing people who just are trying to push for being victims and making everyone out to be victims so that we can just go back in time and not be productive. But there is, I respect that there is a certain amount of bullshit there, but it doesn't come from nowhere. People are pushing for these things because they're not happy about something, and they just haven't fucking fully understood it, because because they got shit deep inside themselves, and they know that there's something wrong in the fucking world, that there's something violent, and it hasn't just come from nowhere. You can't just say, oh yeah, someone grew up and they didn't like to work, or they didn't like a couple of things, so they just decided to complain because they're spoiled little brats. No, like there's obviously something missing in their life, whether it's like dignity, the opportunity to develop, or like having a role model there to guide you through life, or whether they were just abused or whatever it was. I mean, nobody fucking knows. You don't remember these things. Most people wouldn't remember this shit that happens early in life. And now we have all these movements, like where they're pushing for equality, and whatever they're talking about pronouns and shit. I don't know. It doesn't affect me. People complaining about someone wants to be called by a certain pronoun. Like, I don't know. This tyranny that people talk about, this left-wing sort of fascism, whatever tyranny, it hasn't affected me. Maybe it will in the future, but I'm okay. Like, but when I see people behaving this extreme, instead of like trying to like shame them and just complain about like how ridiculous people are becoming, this dangerous ideology, why are we talking about that? Why don't we just recognize that people are behaving from a place of pain and just look into their pain and stop talking about what's wrong with their behavior? Like, you got these famous psychologists like this Jordan Peterson guy. I mean, I respect him. I think he's got some really great opinions. And I learned a lot from him, and he's put so much energy and passion into what he does, and he's inspiring. But he talks so much about what's wrong with this whole left movement, and I understand that it is destructive from a certain point of view, but like he's obsessing about creating order. It's like, what is he afraid of disorder? Like, I mean, what's his problem? I mean, if he's afraid of disorder, why don't you ask where this disorder is coming from? Like, I mean, you're a fucking psychologist. These people have serious disorder within them for a fucking reason, and it doesn't necessarily mean because they want to, chop their penis up and turn it into a vagina or whatever it is, or like they just want to be called like, hi, I'm not a boy or girl, I'm a vegetable, or I'm not a human being, or I'm an it, or I don't know what these pronouns are. I don't pay attention to it, but there's obviously something unsatisfied within the person which they need help with. So why don't we talk about that instead of talking about the problems they're causing? Like, everybody causes problems. Obviously, when it comes to a point where it's extremely destructive, you have to stop people from doing it because you're fucking things up for everyone else. But stopping it doesn't mean just talking about how bad it is. You have to go further than that. Like, if someone's violent to me, I gotta set up boundaries, like about how they, I've got to make them realize that they can't do that sort of thing. But I still understand that the violence comes from somewhere inside them. I don't just talk about what's wrong with what they're doing, because the reality is violence exists in the world. We can't run away from it completely. I mean, yeah, you can create boundaries and whatever, but there's a hell of a lot of violence in cities around the world, and it's not going to end by just shaming it, because what you're shaming is you're shaming the child inside that person, the child that was scarred, the child that's rebelling against whatever happened to them as a child. Like, when they're violent at that moment, that's not coming from an adult, that's coming from the scarred child inside the adult, because they've lost control. I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense to whoever is or is not listening to this video, but it makes sense to me. And I know that I come from a reasonably privileged background, and yet I fucking had a painful life, and I know that the pain isn't just because I'm too privileged or something, or because I just happen to have some chemical imbalance that I was born with. It's because shit happened in my life at an early age, and it stayed with me for fucking years. And over the years, I probably pissed a lot of people off because I didn't really have the focus to learn things, certain things, in the same rate that they would have, because a lot of the resources of my mind would have been occupied by shit that was never processed, it was never dealt with. And I would say that other people have other disadvantages, from their own experiences, and in completely different ways, because everyone's fucking shit is unique. But I think what probably we can all relate to is that something shit happened, or something good didn't happen early in life. Maybe later in life, but most likely early life stuff would have had a bigger impact if you never got a chance to process shit as a child and your mind was shaped in a certain way. What's also common is that we trigger things in our mind, and there's connections to other things, other memories or experiences and feelings. Like I imagine like myself as this deranged creature that's like hated, like if you've seen The Elephant Man, and how he was just beaten around, and how fucking horrible it must have been for him to experience that hatred from people. Like, he's a disgusting creature. I've had these feelings. Sometimes these memories just pop into my head. I imagine myself as something disgusting, something absolutely disgusting, and I'm afraid of people looking at me. And that's because of people abusing me for my appearance as a child. That's all it is. And even if I was some ugly mutthead, I mean, why would I give a shit? I mean, I see people who are not particularly beautiful all the time, and I never really think about how they look. I just see a human being. I don't see like some fucking ugly animal. I just see a human being. I rarely would look at a person and think, oh my God, it's just a fucking person. And then, this shit just flashes into your mind, and you go like, whoa, holy shit, why do I feel like this? And then it's connected to some other shit from life, like associated with some smell or some activity you did or whatever, and it's pervasive in the brain. It can shut you down, and to start to wake up to these things and go into it I think is pretty necessary for 99% of people. I mean, yeah, sure, a lot of people are having pretty decent lives, so maybe they don't need to go through with it, but they would learn a lot. And okay, maybe not 99%, but probably half the world needs to fucking sort some shit out. I mean, if there was a lot more, if 50% or more of people in the world were extremely empathic and understanding and had the energy to help all the people in the world with problems, you would hear it, you would notice it more, I think, because there's a lot more shame going on in the world. Like, if someone has a total violent breakdown in public, maybe they smash up a car, or they beat someone up, or they just say they do something just that's not accepted according to rules. And sure, of course, we need to create some kind of rules and shame or whatever it is But when it's always all about shame for what someone has done, it says to me that people themselves who are reacting to that are feeling shame, that they lack the empathy, and they lack the empathy because they're so caught up by their own scars. I'm sure they have empathy in them, but when they see the other person doing something, they just react in a shaming way, very much because they don't have the capacity at this moment in their life to be understanding. And it's very rare that you hear people being very vocal about being understanding about why people make certain mistakes. Like where you hear it from people in your neighborhood. You know, you go into the pub and people talk shit over a pint. The kind of things that they echo out of their mind, you hear them saying things about other people, and you know that there's some depth in that that's coming from their own experiences. I mean, you even hear it on the media everywhere. You hear it in schools. It's like, it's so big, this scar, this trauma throughout society. And when we wake up to this shit, it can be painful. It can be tiring. You kind of go, well, what do we do now? Because it's not enough to be aware that there's some of this shit happening. You have to be aware of it in the depths of you, because you can't be there for other people if you're not sorting your own shit out deep down. I mean, you can to a certain extent, but you're going to tire yourself out. You're not going to have the full capacity if you haven't sorted your own shit out. I mean, some people had pretty decent upbringings. They weren't abused too much as kids, so they probably have the energy. But they wouldn't, at the same time, they wouldn't have the insight into why some people are so fucked up. So, what am I getting at? I don't know. What's my point? What's my final fucking conclusion here? Just gone blank again. I mean, it's kind of some kind of form of ADD, you could say, but it's not like being distracted or by certain things. It's not it's not like you're wired to just go blank. You're not wired to lose focus. You're not wired to not be able to pay attention. You have a certain way that you are wired from an early age, and then you have too many of certain experiences, and then you can't function the way you were meant to function in the world, because the system that a lot of people are complaining about is actually flawed. It is actually a flawed system, and it's flawed because it's humanity that's flawed, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not blaming humanity. We're just learning. You know, we're going through thousands of years of fucking evolution. We lived in tribes for most of our history, in small villages out in the fucking forest, and now, so, you know, only in the last few thousand years, 10,000 years probably, only a certain percentage of humanity has become more and more civilized, if you will. Populations growing, density, resources becoming scarcer, having to find new ways to exploit resources, people needing to specialize different jobs to be able to support these larger populations, breaking things up, creating rules, having a harder time sharing, people not knowing each other anymore by name, like all these hierarchies forming, and fucking scars came out of it, and all kinds of abuse, psychopathy, or whatever would have come from like issues that were triggered in people, like people early in maybe even deeper in the past. Uh, when there's a scarcity of something that's needed, whether it's food or love, that's gonna trigger your genetics, and that's gonna be passed on to your children and generations later. So like all the shit that goes on in the world, all the fucked up shit and the heartlessness that exists in the world, it comes from a dark human history, and that darkness is in us. You're not just born a clean slate. I mean, genetically, we're going to have some response systems, and we're going to have our epigenetic uh, triggers, and we're going to respond to certain things differently as individuals. And of course, we have our own spirit, whatever you want to believe, and our own personality, whatever you want to call that, comes from something. Whether we're just some from robotic, chemical, fucking machine, whatever, who gives a shit? Like, we're human and we have experience, and that's all that matters. We feel this experience. That's the most meaningful thing in existence, is that we have this awareness and this experience. So who gives a shit how real we are, or our feelings, our personalities, or how robotic we are, how chemical we are? We're human at the end of the day. We have this thing which we get something out of, and let's make the most of that. But let's also recognize that we have shit in us, and we have experiences in our lives that our brains respond to, and they build up over time deep in ourselves, and it affects how we approach the world. And slowly over time, you learn to recognize shit that's happening to you at any moment. You tense up, or you run away from something, or you fight, you react. You're reactive. You have no control. You just need to fight something when it comes at you, because you recognize a threat. Your subconscious recognizes a threat before your fucking eyes do. Almost. And it's not necessarily a threat. It's just the way we've been wired from our own experiences. And this is pretty real shit. Some people call it your shadow, your subconscious mind, the dark place that's being pushed away. And it's not only is it places of pain and awful memories, it's also a lot of our potential, a lot of our abilities are pushed down there. So yeah, I don't know. I'm no expert, so I can't say how long the process is. There's people on the internet who talk about how there's ways you can process all this shit really fast, and I'm open to that. I believe there's ways. I mean, I've had pretty interesting experiences where I've lain in bed late at night and just loads of shit went flying through my head, and instead of like tensing up completely and being afraid and feeling like, oh shit, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna explode, I allowed myself to just feel through these intense shit, and you kind of see the pains of humanity. You could feel it sometimes, because you're a part of it. And fucking sometimes in my life, I really fucking thought I was going to die, or I thought I wanted to kill myself, because there's so much pain in there when you really go into it and know what's going on, but don't understand it. Just chemically, or whatever you want to call it, how you respond to things, and you feel hopeless. You go through these dark mist, this fog of hopelessness. There is something you gotta take a different approach to these feelings that you're not used to, or that you don't understand. There is a way through, and you just have to look at it and go, okay, there's something here, and it hurts, but I am not the hurt. My deeper, most loving or wonderful self, or whatever, is not this confusion that's happening right now. This confusion is me recognizing something that shakes me off out of my comfort zone, and I could panic and just go off and go mad. I could go insane for the rest of my life, or I could try and find some comfort to distract me, like chocolate or sex, or call someone and just have a long stupid conversation about celebrities' underwear or whatever, or yeah. You don't need to panic and go insane, nor do you need to always resort to your comfort zone. You can find the middle ground where you just slowly, patiently learning and also listening to other people, or well, not, a lot of people don't really know about this shit very well, so there's only so much they can tell you, but there's a wealth of information on the internet. And you just gotta keep looking it up. You contact people. You talk to a therapist if you need it. I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I probably could have done more of that. I only went to a couple of sessions. Didn't get much out of it. I feel like I know more about this shit than the therapist did. So anyway. But I'm doing all right. I have these moments where I'm doing something joyful, and then something happens. Something goes. It just goes. You're off somewhere else, and you can't be there. It's in these moments where it's because whatever shit I pushed down from a long time ago, I've opened up to letting it resurface, because I'm allowing it to reveal itself to me, because I want to get in touch with my potential. I want to get in touch with my inner child, my deeper self, the things that mattered to me in the past that I block out. Like, it's part of me. Like, I'm incomplete because I keep this shit down. And I tell you, especially during this last year with the COVID-19 and a hell of a lot of shit that happened in my life before the disease and before this virus, but just this whole lockdown thing and being out of work as a result of it, and then choosing to continue being out of work when they eased the restrictions, and going on a long fucking walk over like 1,000 miles and facing my demons alone in the dark and the cold and the rain. I see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and I feel a lot more at peace. And I think my experiences, although I'm still going through stuff, these experiences could be valuable to other people, and I would be happy to help people. And so far, I'm noticing that I actually am able to help people with shit. It's kind of a recent thing I noticed when I was on this pilgrimage, and I met all these other people who were walking the Camino. I don't know if I've helped them very much, but I was able to point them to things that they didn't know about. It helps that I also learned some things on the internet from different psychologists and gurus and whatever, and also take it with a pinch of salt. Look at things from my own perspective and my own experiences and question things, and also relax and kind of also be open and trusting to a certain extent. So I hope this is valuable to other people. I started recording this just because I wanted to document for myself what I was going through at this moment, when I was sitting there playing the guitar, singing a nice Irish song, and 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 at some point I wasn't able to enjoy it anymore. And then I got these flashes in my head, and I realized, also because I've been realizing a lot of these things the last while. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of these issues are not just some kind of bad habit or retardation. It's a bad habit and retardation that comes from the fact that I couldn't do things smoothly, freely, safely in the way that I wanted to in my childhood. And yeah, I've cried a couple of times in the last year. Probably need to do more, like opening up my emotions, be a more whole person. But with that comes more sort of resonance with other people's feelings. Actually, you notice more now. I notice I'm a lot more aware of other people's feelings than before, because I'm more in touch with my own, and that can be heavy too. So it's learning to balance things and learning to process all that shit, and not get too caught up in other people's feelings, because you want to do other shit in life, like play the guitar, or whatever, or have a job, start a family, whatever it is. So there we go. Fuck you, and thank you, and welcome, and anything else that works.